smells like football, baby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in to the Fantasy Football Smackdown. It is Thursday night. It's 7 p.m. Eastern time. That means it's start-sit time here on the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can follow me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. Appreciate you checking out today's show, whether it's here live on YouTube, just like it is every single week, taking your start-sit questions, or whether you're listening on the podcast on Friday morning. Hopefully you guys have had a good week so far. Looking like going to be an interesting game here on Thursday night for those of you that are waiting to tune into that one. No Cordell Patterson this week, so lots up in the air for fantasy owners for Thursday Night Football. So we'll see how this one pans out. Hopefully everybody gets off to a good start, and we'll be heading into Week 11 this week. It's crunch time, baby. I know for a lot of fantasy leagues out there, they've extended the regular season through Week 14, so we got 4 weeks left for most of us. Before that the playoffs kick off. So we got to make that playoff push here this week. Few quick notes here. If you missed earlier in the week, the Dynasty Warzone podcast with your boys, Memphis and Jerry, they killed it. They covered some really hot named players, I think, in my opinion, for Dynasty purposes that you should be looking to maybe sell or buy. I really enjoyed that episode as always, but want to give a special shout out to those boys this week. I know as we're getting through the fantasy season, maybe you're falling out of contention in some leagues. Maybe you need to look to make some moves. This is the time of year, especially for non-contending teams. You need to be making adjustments to your roster in order to just prepare yourself for next year already. So definitely be sure that you're plugged in, tuned in, and subscribed to all of the Warzone content wherever you listen. But yeah, if you missed that earlier this week, be sure to check that out. Of course, the fabulous Big Bet, as always, with Kyle and Memphis as well, is in kicking it butt this year. So it's been good to see. Obviously, you have the Smackdown here. I'm going to be back at it on Saturday with waiver wire sniping. That's YouTube only. So be sure to check that out as well. Don't slack. Get that extra edge. This is the time. Make it happen. Yeah, it's been another good week here on the DWZ network. Quick programming note before we dive into some questions. So if you're in the chat, keep them coming. Before we dive into all that, make sure that you're subscribed for one, so you get all of our content every single week. That's a no doubter. You got to have that thing subscribed wherever you listen. But next week is Thursday, is Thanksgiving, and a ton of football games. So we're going to have a lot of content here on the Warzone Network Tuesday night. Live on YouTube, we're just going to be knocking them all out. We have the whole gang here. We're going to be doing pretty much all the shows at once in order to make sure you get everything. You're not shorted at all. So be sure to hang out with us on YouTube. If you're subscribed, turn those notifications on. Next Tuesday night, we're going to be knocking out the Dynasty Warzone. We're going to do some start sits. We're going to do the fabulous Big Bet, some DFS. We're going to cover it all. So it's going to be a really good time. Looking forward to it. Memphis is kind enough to chop that up from podcast form, so it'll still be there for you guys. All right, now we got everything rolling here. I am riding solo tonight. No Dallas, but I do have his start and sit at tight end, so don't worry. The tight end whisperer will be represented there. First question of the night. This is what you get when you tune in live. Mike's asking Cole Beasley or Jalen Reagor in half PPR. Man, Jalen Reagor is a dead carcass on a lot of my rosters, a lot of those being dynasty, hoping that maybe he could overcome his poor rookie performance, and so far not even close to enough. I know Beasley's been banged up. He hasn't necessarily been even the PPR monster that we had hoped, but even in half PPR, I'm going to lean Cole Beasley this week. It's going to be it stinks that he's not 100% because otherwise this is a slam dunk, but Reagor is seeing 1 to 2 targets a game. It feels like he's not getting much in production wise. So I think you go with Beasley. It's a safer floor. I don't think there's much upside, if any, for Reagor. So Beasley's your answer there. Mike, appreciate you tuning in and throwing in a question. All right, let's dive into this. We're going to start with the quarterbacks, and I'll be sprinkling in questions from the chat as we go. My start of the week, this is a quarterback that over consensus right now is outside the top 12, as he probably should be. But if I'm not liking my quarterback situation, or maybe I have Matthew Stafford on bye this week, I have no problem rolling out one Cam Newton. Now, I know this is a name that I didn't think I would say once on this damn show all year, but I'm okay rolling Cam Newton against the Washington football team. Washington on the year has given up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks on the season. They've been a little bit better as of late, held Tom Brady in check. But Cam's going to run. And there you go. There's your floor. Look at Jalen Hurts. I know he's not been fabulous the last couple weeks, but on the year, he's a top 10 quarterback. I think Cam Newton can be that due to the rushing upside that he's going to have. So I'm rolling Cam Newton over some of the streaming options like Mac Jones tonight. We'll see how that one pans out. Jimmy G, who's been hot as of late, has a good matchup against Jacksonville. Tua has been pretty decent in his starts as well. I'm even rolling him over Derek Carr, who had an okay game last week, but that offense is sputtering just a bit. So I think Cam Newton's going to give you a pretty decent floor and maybe some upside there as well for fantasy purposes with that rushing. So speaking of the Panthers, we got a question here. Iden, I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names. Maybe that's not even your real name because we're on the internet. Should I start the Panthers defense or the Patriots defense? I'm going to go with the Panthers. I think they've been a pretty solid unit. Both these units have been pretty good. Panthers get Washington this week, and that offense is not spectacular. They're pretty much just trying to maintain. So I think the Panthers defense, last time I checked too, I think it's 3 out of the last 4 weeks have been pretty solid for fantasy purposes. Now, DST scoring changes on every site. That's why I don't talk about DSTs that much. But I'm going to go ahead and roll with the Panthers this week. So I think both are solid options, but I'm going to go with Carolina. So that one pans out. Instant gratification there, maybe, on Thursday Night Football. All right. Sit of the week at quarterback for me is Mr. Consistent. He's my boy. He's in my quarterback in a lot of leagues. But I'm trying to get away from Kirk Cousins if I can. Kirk Cousins, as Memphis would say, has been really good as of late. He's been steady. He's a top 12 quarterback, and he's been reliable most weeks. But he's going up against Green Bay Packers defense that I think is really good. They held Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, and a 9-fingered Russell Wilson. None of those quarterbacks eclipsed 11 fantasy points in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues over the last 3 weeks. And only one quarterback since week 3 has thrown more than one passing touchdown against this defense. Cousins, for me, is outside my top 12. It would be tough. Honestly, Cam and Cousins are pretty close for me, but usually Cousins is right there around 12th. But I think you can comfortably roll guys like Joe Burrow, Russell Wilson, I think back at it this week for me, even though it was a sit last week. Tannehill. Those guys, I would definitely roll those other players. As far as streaming quarterbacks go, Cam would really be the only one, maybe Tua over Cousins, but I'm trying to get away from him if I can. I think his upside's 2 touchdowns, and that's just not good enough. And he doesn't run, obviously. So if I can get away from Kirk Cousins this week, I'm going to try to set the Vikings QB in a tough matchup against Green Bay. All right, let's move on to the running backs. This one is I really like both these starts and sits, so that means it'll probably fail. But we'll go to the start first, and then we got a question from Steve here, so we'll get to him next. My start of the week at quarterback is Myles Gaskin. I hate Myles Gaskin as much as the next guy. The dude is completely frustrating as hell. Every time you think he's going to have a decent game, he doesn't, and those players are tough, the ones that you can't predict. Even a few weeks ago when Malcolm Brown first went on IR, Gaskin had an okay game. He got that early touchdown, but he really didn't do much. Not a ton of production for him. So this week, though, I'm rolling him. And here's why. The Jets. The Jets have been god-awful against the running back position. On the season, they have given up the most fantasy points to the running back position. That doesn't even tell you the whole picture. They've given up 8 more points on average to the running back position than second place. They have given up 14 total touchdowns to running backs in the last 4 games. And the only team where their running back failed to score a touchdown was all the way back in week 1 with a completely healthy Christian McCaffrey. Imagine that. Myles Gaskin's a start. He's 15th for me in my rankings. I'm plugging him in. You're playing him. This is it. Come on, Gaskin. Help us out, man. After all the pain you've put us through this year, come through against this Jets defense because it needs to happen. So Myles Gaskin, dunk him into your lineup and feel good about it. And we'll be sitting here with a victory on Sunday, hopefully looking at, 120-2. That'd be pretty nice. Maybe that's a lot to ask for, but I'm going to ask for it anyway. Steve, what up, man? Welcome into the chat. All right, we got some names here. Not a ton of good ones, but let's take a look. If you had to start 2, these are a lot of running backs here. So we got Drake, Bolden tonight. We got Pollard, Daryl Williams, Jeff Wilson, and Donta Foreman. So again, Drake, Bolden, Pollard, Daryl Williams, Jeff Wilson, and Foreman. For me, I think the the three that jump out to me for sure are Pollard, Daryl Williams, and Jeff Wilson. Now, the caveat being is Elijah Mcguire's health. I believe he had surgery on his finger earlier this week. He's got a good matchup against Jacksonville. So if Mitchell's active, then I think that downgrades Wilson a bit. But I liked what I saw from Wilson as far as his usage. Second week back last week, saw a decent snap share, and is a guy that obviously the 49ers have shown trust in the past. So for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Pollard in my lineup. And then, unfortunately, I don't have the start times in front of me, so I apologize. Maybe I would double check this. There's some homework. Sorry. I would go if Mitchell's out, then I'm rolling Jeff Wilson over Daryl Williams. But if Mitchell's in, then you just play Daryl Williams. So I'm going to go Pollard and then Wilson if Elijah Mitchell's out for San Francisco. But if Elijah Mitchell's active, then go with Daryl Williams. I'm pretty sure Kansas City plays in the late, the 4:15 slate. So, and then I would assume that San Fran and Jacksonville is probably in the noon or 1 o'clock slate for you East Coasters. So there you have it. A lot of names there, but I think you got some decent options. But really, those top three jump out to me. So you're going to have to wait till Sunday, probably adjust accordingly. But appreciate the question there, Steve. Mike's back for another one here. Appreciate you tuning into the show. You got James Washington. Of course, we don't know for sure whether Big Ben is going to play or not. But that could be up in the air. You don't want to lose that Oklahoma State connection that we saw last week with James Washington finding pay dirt. So James Washington or Elijah Moore have PPR. And either over Beasley before. That was the question he asked before. Man, for me, it's a tough matchup for Moore this week. The Dolphins have been pretty decent against wide receivers on the year, especially since they took on what was that London game where they were out without their cornerbacks. I'm gonna roll with James Washington over Elijah Moore, and I would stick with Cole Beasley, though, just for a little bit of safer floor. I think Moore and Washington are both kind of boom bust plays, but with not enough ceiling where that's worth taking the shot yet. So if I had to choose between Washington and Moore, I'm going to go James Washington for this week, but I would still go Beasley over both. So they're all close there, and they're all outside the top 30 easily. But, hey, we love deep leagues. We love tough decisions like this. So that's the route I would go. Hopefully that helps. All right. Speaking of deep league play, here we go. Jacob's in the chat. Deep league play. Mike Davis with no Cordell tonight or Kenyan Drake in full PPR. Let's see here. I want to make sure I double check this. So we got the Raiders going up against Cincinnati in Vegas since he's coming back off their bye. Kenyan Drake was pretty disappointing last week. Honestly, I thought the game script would work out really well for him. I even put his prop, I think, over at DraftKings was 18.5 receiving yards, and he didn't even get it, which really pissed me off because he had 80 the week before. Personally, and again, I don't mind answering Thursday night questions on the live chat. That's why we're here. The podcast listeners get to laugh at me from time to time because hindsight's undefeated, as I say. I'm going to go with Mike Davis. I am not 100% sold that Gallman is just handed the keys. I think that game was a blowout by halftime. The Cowboys poured it on. They took out their frustrations on that poor Atlanta Falcons team. And without Patterson, I think Davis is primed for a decent game tonight. So Drake, it concerns me just a bit, even with it being PPR. I'm going to roll with Mike Davis. Fingers crossed. But I think that's your best option. So best of luck to you, Jacob. Hopefully that hits tonight. And hopefully the listeners on the podcast aren't laughing at my ass the next day. All right, we're going to stick with running back questions because I got my sit of the week at running back, and that is Daryl Williams. He was actually in one of the previous questions. He's coming off a big game, and the receptions were awesome, and CEH is not expected to be back probably till post-bye week for Kansas City. So Daryl Williams coming off a big game. He's tough to sit. He's still on the inside of my top 24, but he's just inside. I know consensus rankings right now over at Fantasy Pro says I'm a little higher. But for me, Daryl Williams is going into a tougher matchup. Dallas has given up the 6th fewest fantasy points to running backs on the season with just 5 total touchdowns. This should be a shootout game, so I totally get the hesitation from sitting a running back in a game where the over-under should probably be set at 60 plus. I don't believe it was last time I checked DraftKings. But if you can get away from Daryl Williams, I don't think he's an auto start. But he's still inside my top 24. I'm not playing Donta Foreman or the Patriots guys tonight over him necessarily, but he's a little bit lower than where the consensus has him right now. So if you have Myles Gaskin as an example, I love that. It's not even a question, but I would just pump the brakes just a bit on Daryl Williams. All right. Moving into the wide receivers. Guy that I'm going to start this week. Now, this is all assuming that his quarterback is healthy because the dude takes as many sick days as anyone I've ever seen in my life for non-COVID reasons. But if Lamar's active, I'm starting Rashad Bateman against the Chicago Bears. Bears are coming off the bye week. It's going to be in Chicago. Weather here shouldn't be bad in Chicago, in case you guys didn't know, despite the Cowboys hat. Bateman has been awesome in his 4 weeks since he was active. The dude has 8 targets in each of his last 2 games, no less than 6 targets in his 4 games he's already played. And he has 80 yards on the nose, weirdly enough, but 80 yards in 2 of his last 3. Chicago also gives up the 4th most fantasy points to wide receivers on the year. Their secondary is not great. And I love the production I've seen from Bateman in his just first month of returning from injury. So Bateman for me is just outside the top 24. He's a high-end flex for me. But if you can start him, I'm going to try to figure out a way to get him in my lineup this week. Playing him over some guys that were drafted way higher, and the expectation was those guys would be my starters at week in and week out. But Bateman's worked his way into my starting lineup in some leagues, and I think he should be in your lineup as well. One of the guys that I'm playing Rashad Bateman over is DJ Moore. I don't love what I saw last week. As much as I like Cam Newton for fantasy, DJ Moore has struggled as of late, even pre-Cam. If you guys remember, if you've listened back, now DJ Moore is somebody that I struggle with just in general. I think it was 3 weeks in, I was like ready to just cash out on DJ Moore. And then he had that, if you guys remember, he had that 2 touchdown game against the Dallas Cowboys. That was 6 games ago. In those 6 games since, he's had 1 game of double-digit fantasy points and half PPR. That was 10 points. 1 game. He's had 3 games, so half of those have been under 7. So it's been extremely frustrating to be a DJ Moore owner right now. A lot of factors going into that. I don't think it's the talent necessarily. But this is a guy that's definitely not an auto start. He's outside my top 24. I'd start Bateman over him. Washington, now on paper, this seems like a good matchup. They've given up the 2nd most fantasy points on the season to the position, but that's really front-loaded to the beginning of the year. As of late, they haven't given up more than 76. Had to put it at 76. They haven't given up more than 76 receiving yards to a wide receiver since week 5. So they've really done a better job as of late there with the football team. So I'm going to try to sit DJ Moore if I can. He's a flex, and he's kind of a middle flex for me. There's definitely more players I'd be excited about. Bateman being one of them, fellow rookie. Waddle would be another one as an example. So take that for what you will. I know it's tough because I was counting on DJ Moore as a high end too. And the kid just not getting it done as of late for whatever reason. So, all right. Last but not least, got to pick up my boys' notes here as well, because we are without the tight end whisperer this evening, as Dallas was not able to make it. All good. He's got a start and sit as well, so I'll just throw those out there here at the end. But my start of the week at tight end, because this dude gets no respect. I'm not sure where he's at in ownership. But I know when I looked on waiver wire day, he was still at like 26. If the dude is not over 50% owned, I'm going to flip out. Might as well just do that live on the show. Why not? Got nothing else going on right now. I'm just going to go ahead and spend my life looking up Dan Arnold ownership percentage in Yahoo leagues. This is what we do, people. This is why you guys pay for all this fine content. 39% owned. What in the hell are we doing? Dan Arnold is only 39% owned, so he's widely available. And this dude's just been getting it done. He has 60 yards in 4 of his last 5 games. He has 7 targets in those 4 games as well, and has just been balling. The matchups don't matter. This guy's a top 12 tight end. He should be every single week. So get him in your damn lineups. I don't really know what else to say there. But that this guy, as much as I made fun of, like, oh my God, they traded for a tight end, doesn't Jacksonville have more problems to solve than trading for a tight end in the middle of the season or after 3 weeks? Arnold's been awesome. You got to get him in your lineups. I know the touchdowns haven't been there yet, but when a dude is getting 7+ targets a game and 60+ yards a game at tight end, I mean, that's top 10. That's top 10 tight end. So get him in your lineup. Sit of the week. I have 2. One is kind of just cautious. I'm not auto slamming Rob Gronkowski back into my lineup. unless you have had zero answers and been struggling for the last month at the position, playing guys like Njoku or, I don't know, Everett or something like that. Like if you're desperate as hell, even Everett was actually good last week. If you're desperate as hell, then go ahead, play Gronk. He's on your team. But I'm going to try to steer clear of him. It sounds like he's going to play, but I want to see it first. Last time we saw him suit up, he barely played and re-injured himself. So my true sit of the week at tight end, hopefully we better than last week. I was pretty good on the sits last week, except for tight end, because stupid ass Hunter Henry had to score 2 touchdowns. So if you didn't listen to me, you did all right. But my sit of the week at tight end is Dalton Schultz. I'm going to be a little Cowboys hater here. Again, no, it's tough to sit players in a matchup that these teams should be going off. But Schultz saw 2 targets last week, which you can't always, 1 week. Who cares, man? He's been pretty decent all year. Michael Gallup was back, man. And that is the concern. For me, I just don't know that there's enough to go around. And as much as I like Schultz still, I think you can maybe count on him. If we saw a little bit more track record with all 3 guys healthy. Right now, you don't need to risk it. I think there's plenty of guys out there. There's guys that have emerged as of late. So Dalton Schultz is a sit for me this week. Just 2 targets last week, even going up against Kansas City in what should be a shootout. Try to get away from him this week. A couple more questions in the chat, and then I'll close with our boy Dallas's start and sit at tight end, which on the year, full disclosure, has been better than mine. See how it goes. All right, let's take a look. We got Mark in the chat here. This is a Thursday night question. Ramondre, Stevenson, or Tony in the flex? Standard scoring, I'm assuming. He says flex standard. If it's standard scoring, good on you. Got to stay strong. Keep those that non-PPR out of this world. I hear you, man. All right, Ramondre Stevenson or Kadarius Toney. So I've been recording for the last 20 minutes or so, but my understanding is that Damian Harris is active, which for me gives me hesitancy to start either guy. The matchup should be okay. Tony's been banged up, injured, so you have to factor that in as well, and it's a decision you have to make tonight. For me, though, I'm going to go with Stevenson. I'm going to take the shot on him that it worked his way into some workload here for the Patriots. He's coming obviously off a big game, showed out pretty well. I also like that he had some involvement in the passing game, which was definitely encouraging. And with Tony, he's coming back, he's a little bit banged up right now. But also, too, when you look at the situation with the Giants, hopefully Sterling Shepard might be back. Kenny Galladay just came back right before the team went on by. And Saquon Barkley should be back this week as well. I don't know how this Giant situation is going to pan up. So I think you're literally just throwing a dart if you pretty much start any of these guys on the Giants, to be completely honest. Going up against Tampa Bay this week. So I'd start Stevenson. I know it's tough. Kind of piggybacking on that, DJ coming in, how do you feel about Stevenson tonight? Or should I go with Mike Davis, who isn't consistent? That just to, kind of reiterate that again. With the Patriots having both guys back, Harris and Stevenson, I am hesitant to start those New England Patriots running backs. I just think I'm not sure how this one's going to pan out. I'm really, really unsure. As much as Atlanta might seem like it's a dual backfield too with Gallman and Davis, I would go with Davis. I'm not sold that Gallman was just handing the reins. I believe as well that the head coach for the Falcons came out and said that part of the reason Gallman got work was because they knew they were heading into a short week. Again, that Dallas game was blown out by halftime. So there was really no reason for them to be rolling out the regular guys. So I know it stinks. I wish we had more information. I wish we had more time and could work off of something, but I'm a little bit nervous on Stevenson tonight. So I would go with Mike Davis and hopefully that pans out. Again, all of you on the podcast have enjoy my takes. Hopefully they don't suck on this, but this backfield tonight overall, both situations is really, really tough to read. So I know it's tough, but that's the way I would lean. We got another question here from Steve, who's sticking around. Appreciate you, man. PPR, we got Higgins, AJ Brown, Pittman, Deontay Johnson, and CeeDee Lamb. Man, that's what you call a good problem to have. We got to sit 2 guys from this. So for me, Lamb and AJ Brown are auto starts. I know AJ Brown sucked last week, but they're playing Houston. I think they're an auto go. So I would go with Lamb and AJ Brown are pretty easy. The next 3 get a little bit tougher. Pittman has been awesome. He has the toughest matchup of all of them going up against Buffalo this week. So he is probably third of the remaining three. So he's a sit. Higgins going up against the Raiders, coming back off the bye. Obviously seen a ton of targets as of late, but the production hasn't been there hasn't found the end zone as much as we would like. And Deontay Johnson's dealing with a continued quarterback problem. But with it being full PPR, I think that gives Deontay Johnson the edge. I love Higgins. He's my boy, but I think you have an embarrassment of riches, my friend. So congratulations, Steve. I'm auto starting A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb every single week unless they're injured. They're in there. They're not injured. And then I would play Deontay Johnson in PPR still over Higgins and Pittman. But you're looking good, man. I really, really, really dig what you got going on there at wide receiver. So can never have enough players, though. Nice depth. And we got another one. We got one from David. Appreciate you, man. Coming in with a quarterback question here as we're closing things up. But always appreciate it. We got Jimmy G or Matt Ryan. Jimmy G is going up against Jacksonville on the road this week. Matt Ryan obviously playing tonight against New England. Matt Ryan was absolutely god-awful horrible last week, as we all know. I don't even think he scored one fantasy point. Might have been 0.6 or something like that. Without Patterson, obviously still no Calvin Ridley. This team is void of weapons. Jimmy G had a pretty good NFL game on, what's that, Sunday night, Monday night, primetime game. Doesn't matter. That team pretty much had it locked up against the Rams. He didn't have to do much. But the previous two games before that, he was 20 plus. He was looking really good, and I think this matchup against Jacksonville should do him well. I would go with Jimmy G over Matt Ryan tonight. I think you're looking at Jimmy G having way better weapons, has a way better matchup. I think it's pretty easily Jimmy G over Matty Ice. I know Matty Ice was pretty solid before that, but I'm going to go with Jimmy G for you at quarterback. We got another question here. Would you start Pollard or Stevenson? I'm going Pollard with Harris in there. I want to see how this Patriots backfield looks. So there you go. I'd go with Pollard. I think that shootout, both of those Cowboys running backs should continue to see volume, and I feel a little bit safer with Pollard. But don't drop Stevenson. Hold on to him. See how this one pans out. If he worked his way ahead of Harris, then you're sitting on a pretty gold mine because those rushing touchdowns have been awesome. So, all right. All right. I think we got one. So Pollard over Stevenson. Sorry. I got a few notes coming in here. See you guys saying thanks for answering. Appreciate you boys. Thanks for checking out the show. Mike, I don't know your question, man. Thoughts on Mac Jones QB question? Throw it in the chat if you got a little explanation on that. I'll just touch on Mac Jones just overall. I know we saw the 3 touchdowns from him last week, which was great. Didn't even crack 200 yards though. Going up against the Falcons tonight. They're a pretty bad defense, better than they were last year, slightly, but pretty bad still. I'm not starting Mac Jones if I can avoid it. He is outside my top 15. I mentioned on the waiver wire show that I would pick up Tua over him. I had Jimmy G over him as well as like some streaming options. And I would start Cam Newton over Mac Jones tonight. Here we go. Mike's got it. Jimmy G or Mac Jones. I just answered it. Weirdly enough, I would start Jimmy G. Because I just think the matchups is solid for both, but I think there's Jimmy G's been showing up a little bit more. I think before last week, I'm not sure that Mac Jones had a game over 16 fantasy points. They just don't need him to do it, right? They've won games with their defense and a solid running game, and when they've gotten down in the red zone, they're running the ball, which is great for the running back situation. I wish we had more clarity on whether Harris or Stevenson will be seeing the lion's share, but when they get down in the red zone, they've been running the ball. I would go with Jimmy G. I feel I like him this week. That is the opposite of where Fantasy Pros has them. They're 2 spots apart. Fantasy Pros has Mac Jones. I'm going Jimmy G. Up to you, man. But I'm going Jimmy G. All right. Let's see here. Keep bringing the questions. We got them. We got another minute or two. Because we got Dallas's start and sit. So he couldn't be here, but he's the tight end whisperer. He had to drop the notes in here. He said the start of the week at tight end for him is Zach Ertz, going up against the Seattle Seahawks. Let's take a quick look at Zach Ertz since he's been in Arizona. Now, quick notes on that. Obviously, monitor the situation with Kyler Murray. It doesn't sound like DeAndre Hopkins is going to be going this week as well. He's pretty much been MIA from practice. Taking a look over the last 3 weeks, he has 11 receptions. He's broken 40 yards in 2 of those games. So I definitely, Ertz is somebody that's definitely in consideration as far as if you're looking to start tight end for me, but Dallas is saying to roll him out there. Ertz is tight end 13 over at Fantasy Pros, so you could look to get him in your lineup, even though he's outside the top 12. And sit of the week, I don't know. Of course, he gives me this to convey to you guys. His sit of the week at tight end is Kyle Pitts going tonight. So we'll see real quick whether he's right or wrong. Kyle Pitts going up against the Patriots. Now, old Bill is going to be taking away what you do best, right? That's the whole narrative street, and they literally have just Kyle Pitts. So if you're lucky enough to have two really good tight ends, you could look to steer away from Kyle Pitts. I would temper expectations as well for Pitts this week, but we'll see tonight. We'll all get to watch in prime time, and hopefully the Rook can put up some big numbers. But Dallas is telling you to just steer clear just a bit or temper expectations. If you're playing DFS, he might not be in for a big game as you would think. I got another one in the chat here, so I'll stick around. David says, does Amari move to the slot with Gallup back? Would that move him up in the ranks? Actually, CeeDee Lamb has been playing that slot. It's played more slot than he had previously with Gallup back. I think both. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me as far as how that broke out, where those guys lined up. But I think Cooper and Lamb will see more time in the slot a piece. I know that as far as what I saw, it was more notable that Lamb was in the slot more than Amari. Maybe that was just because more production for him came there than Amari Cooper. But for me, Amari Cooper is still a top 15 wide receiver every single week. You want a piece of that offense. I know he's been a little bit hit or miss as of late, but with Dak fully back, this is a guy I'm starting him every single week. I don't have any concerns over Amari Cooper. The dude's still a stud talent. And, you take the good with the bad with that guy. He's not top 10 because of the inconsistencies, but he's top 15 for me. So, but with Gallup back, honestly, I don't see that as a hindrance for either Lamb or Cooper. I think there's enough for all of them to go around. This is a great offense. You want every piece of it you can. Whale, something. Here we go. Great bringing the question here. We got full PPR, tight end, Knox or Gronk. I'm going with Dawson Knox. I know he was coming back from injury. But so Gronk is coming back from injury this week. So I said earlier in the show, I'm going to try to steer clear of Gronk where I can. And this is a perfect situation where you have a fine option, roll with Dawson Knox and feel good about that. I think he's your guy this week, but hold on to Gronk, see how it pans out. We got a lot of Stevenson questions. Man, I hope this pans out. We got another question here. Who do I start? This is a running back. Looks like we got two options, really. We got Ramondre Stevenson, Latavius Murray, and he also has Freeman. Latavius returned to practice this week, so I like that. I've been talking about him a lot on the waiver wire show. Talked about him again earlier this week as a guy that you can pick up, probably slide him under the radar. And sure enough, the report comes out that he practices on Wednesday, and now people are back on it. I'm going to play the Ravens running back, and that would be Latavius Murray if he's active. Freeman if Latavius can't go for whatever reason. I'm trying to avoid this Patriots running back situation. I'm literally going to get off this and I'm going to go through all my lineups and scrub it out and see. But I honestly don't foresee me playing Stevenson in many matchups. I know it's tough to do because he's coming off a big game, but with Harris back, I think that's real. So I'm going to go with Latavius. If for some reason Latavius is out, you can just toggle right over to Freeman and you're good to go. So that's the good thing about having another option on Sunday instead of having to make the decision tonight. So appreciate the question. But I'd go with Latavius Murray. Don't drop Stevenson. Hang on. See how that thing goes. Anthony in the chat. Hunter or Hawk? Going tight end here. Hawkinson literally laid a dump last week. And he is that one was tough to swallow. That was a situation where they were just not throwing the ball. Jared Goff's banged up. They're going to start some guy named Tim something. I don't even know because it doesn't matter. Honestly, I would roll Hunter Henry tonight. The dude just keeps scoring touchdowns. I sat him last week and he scores. I put him as a sit. He scored twice. I believe it's 5 straight games. I think you just got to go with Hunter Henry. Though you have a good option. I'm not getting away from Hawkinson for like a streamer other than Dan Arnold, apparently, who's a streamer because no one owns him. But I think you could roll Hunter tonight. And I'd be good with that. You don't need to take the risk on what that quarterback situation is going to look like for the Lions on Sunday. So Hawkinson's still my top 10, but honestly, if you want to, I don't really think it's playing it safe. I think you can just roll with Hunter Henry. He's been freaking awesome as of late. Touchdown or bust, but better than 0 catches. Anthony's got another one here. Appreciate you, boys. DJ Moore versus Mixon, or I'm assuming D Johnson. I'm assuming Deontay Johnson. If you could only choose one, I would go with Mixon. I think he's going to be set up for a good game. The dude's been a stud when he's been out there. He was on bye last week, so we've all forgot him. But I think Joe Mixon's an easy play. He's a top 10 running back for me against the Raiders. Yeah, no doubt. I think you're rolling Joe Mixon. If it's start two, if it's Deontay Johnson or DJ Moore, I'm gonna go Deontay Johnson. So I've rolled with Joe Mixon there. All right. Well, there you have it. We got 35 minutes solo. Pretty good. Appreciate all of you guys in the chat. This has been awesome. Always enjoy the questions. It's great to interact with you guys. I love doing live shows when I can. So appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Again, I'll restate programming note that I said at the top. We are not going to have the normal schedule next week because of Thanksgiving, but we are going to have all the normal content. So Tuesday night next week, whatever date that is, I'm going to look it up because I have the internet. The 23rd, Tuesday the 23rd. Make sure you're subscribed, notifications on YouTube. Come hang out with us. I'm sure we're going to get punch drunk as hell down the line because we're going to be recording every Warzone Network show at once. Pretty sure I just whacked the mic. Sorry. We're going to be recording the Warzone, the Start Sit Smackdown, the Fabulous Big Bet, DFS content. We're going to knock it all out. We're going to do it all. The whole gang's going to be here. It's going to be awesome. Looking forward to it. Obviously, a lot of Thanksgiving Day games, 6 teams playing. So you're going to want all that content as early as possible. Check out that show on Tuesday night live on YouTube. Memphis has committed to chopping it up and putting them in podcast form. He's a saint. I wouldn't do that. I love you guys, but I would just dump that crap into the podcast feed, and there you go. Have at it. But come hang out with us. And I will be monitoring the chat to see who's in here and hanging out with us. And so bring a beer or something. Come hang out with us on Tuesday night. We all got to work Wednesday still probably, so why not? Just come hang out with us on, it's probably going to be like 2 hours, so jump in anytime. But looking forward to that. So with that puts a bow on this. Appreciate all the questions. I will be checking out now, but if you follow me on Twitter at Kyle Monthate, hit me up anytime with any questions. I will be back here as well with waiver wire sniping this Saturday, getting you ahead of the week 12 waiver wire. I will also have waiver wire sniping next week as well. So got waiver wire sniping this upcoming Saturday. I'm going to have the regular waiver wire show that will drop Tuesday morning on the podcast feed. Then we're going to be doing the all-inclusive DWZ Network show Tuesday night live on YouTube. And then that week after the Thanksgiving Day games, I will also have waiver wire sniping as regularly scheduled. So appreciate you boys. Take it easy. Thanks as always. We'll catch you on Saturday with waiver wire sniping. See you guys.